Hey guys, Spud here, as always, and I am so excited for the upcoming DCS F-4E Phantom II from Heatblur. The F-4, and specifically the F-4E variant, has been one of my favorite aircraft of all time, and she is sorely needed within DCS World to flesh out both Cold War and modern scenarios for both the red and the blue side. Now, as I was reading through the newly released manual, a few things stood out to me, and I was thinking about how DCS World players could potentially satisfy some of their hype by using other aircraft to prepare for the coming release of the F-4E. If not the F-4's exact switchology, then at least its tactics and concepts of operation. One of the most interesting aspects of the F-4E Phantom II, and especially the initial DSCG or Digital Scan Converter Group version that we'll be getting, is the inclusion of Dive Toss or DT, Dumb Bomb Delivery Method. Ed Rasmus, in his fantastic book Palace Cobra, his memoir on flying and fighting in the F-4E Phantom II during the linebacker campaigns through the end of the war, expounds at length about Dive Toss Bomb Delivery. Initially, he was rather dubious about the new computerized bombing technique in the F-4E after his manual bombing skills in the F-105 Thunder Chief brought him through 100 missions over North Vietnam unscathed, and his crash course flying the F-4 in the then outdated F-4C. However, once an experienced Wizzo convinced him to try the newfangled dive toss delivery method on some insignificant piece of jungle somewhere in Southeast Asia, he was convinced and used dive toss for the majority of his weapon deliveries throughout the rest of his tour, flying as the killer element of the hunter-killer pairing of F-105F Wild Weasels with F-4E Phantom IIs. Through my reading of memoirs and histories of F-4 pilots from both the USAF and the Islamic Republic of Iran Air Force, as well as talking to former USAF air crews, it is my educated guess that dive toss will cover roughly 90% of how DCS World pilots will employ dumb bombs in the F-4E, with manual bombing covering roughly 9%, and the other whiz-bang very complex and difficult to understand methods covering the last 1%. So if I've piqued your hype here for the aircraft here, don't worry. We currently have an aircraft in DCS World where you can practice dive toss delivery of dumb bombs as close to the way the F-4E does it as possible. This aircraft is the DCS Mirage 2000C, and its method of delivering unguided munitions, like the Mark 82, is very similar to how you'll be using dive toss in the F-4E Phantom II. And if you can master bombing in the Mirage 2000C, you'll be ready to rock and roll when the F-4E finally comes to us. So let's hop in the cockpit of the Mirage 2000C and demonstrate how to deliver unguided Mark 82s in the Mirage. Alright guys, welcome back to the office of the Mirage 2000C. It's been quite a long time since I've featured the Mirage in one of my videos, but I'm definitely getting more interested in the aircraft as I see more parallels between the way the Mirage 2000C works under the hood and the way the F-4E Phantom II works under the hood. So let's go ahead and set up our aircraft for dive toss bombing, and then we'll dig into talking about how dive toss actually works in the F-4E and the Mirage 2000C. So we'll go ahead and fence in here, master arm on, external lights coming off. We'll select our Mark 82s. We've got 6 Mark 82s on our aircraft today, and we'll drop them in pairs, and we'll have an impact of 100 meters between each bomb impact. Alright, so that's all good to go. We'll go ahead and kick the autopilot off. And let's talk about how dive toss mode actually works, both in the Mirage 2000C here, as well as the F-4E Phantom II. Now, I know this method of bombing is called something different in the Mirage 2000C, however, I'm making this video as a comparison to the F-4E Phantom II to help get you guys prepared for that aircraft, so we're going to go with the F-4's kind of terminology for things. Now, essentially the way dive toss mode works under the hood for both aircraft is the bombing computer or the mission computer in the aircraft knows what type of bomb you're going to drop. The Mirage 2000C here knows we're dropping a Mark 82, or in French parlance, a BL-1. In the F-4E, the bombing computer knows the drag profile of the bomb that you selected because you've inputted that into the computer. You then lock the radar onto a point on the ground, and the mission computer or bombing computer in each aircraft respectively will calculate the appropriate time to drop the weapon to impact the target based off of your dive angle, your speed, and your attitude of your aircraft, angle of attack, air temperature, air density, all that kind of stuff that's fed into the air data computer. So that means that you can ingress into the target at whatever dive angle, whether it's steep or shallow, and pull out of that dive at any point, in which you can actually drop the bombs in the dive, or you can pull out of the dive early and toss the bombs out towards your target. And thus, that's why it's called dive toss. You don't have to stay in the dive all the way to weapons release, like you would have to do in, say, more modern CCIP kind of situation in a F/A-18C Hornet, F-15E Strike Eagle, or F-16C Fighting Falcon. Now, CCIP is going to be a little bit more precise in those more modern aircraft, and dive toss mode isn't going to be you going after, say, an individual tank on the ground, but it's going to be more area targets, like a couple of big old static ships that we've got here set out for us, or say a column of tanks, or a runway, or aircraft parked on the apron of an airfield, things of that nature. Now, a difference between these two aircraft is in the F-4E, the Wizzo is heavily involved in the procedure. There's a lot of crew coordination going back and forth between the front seat and the back seat. The Wizzo has to turn the radar over to air-to-ground mode, set the radar range between 5 and 10 nautical miles, and then once you get your LCOS kind of pointed at roughly the target you want to hit, you then tell the backseater to lock that point on the ground. So there's a lot of back and forth in dive toss in the F-4E. In the Mirage 2000, because we've got late 70s, early 80s avionics, and we have a better HOTAS system, and of course it's a single-seat aircraft, we can do the whole operation from the front seat, but the fundamentals are going to be more or less the same, making it a great aircraft for you to prepare for the F-4E in. So let's go ahead and throw our HUD as well as our avionics systems and radar over into air-to-ground mode using our weapon command switch. And we can see the symbology on our HUD change over. The radar is now slaved to the dot in the middle of our diamond here. We're then going to dive down onto our target and lock the radar onto our point on the ground. Keep in mind, the aircraft is not smart enough to know that the point on the ground here is going to be a ship, or a tank, or an aircraft on the ramp, or anything like that. It just knows, hey, that's the point in space and time that I want the weapons to impact. It doesn't know anything more than that. We're also going to get some roll cues in order to keep our aircraft as wings level as possible and our pull-out to make our bomb drop as accurate as possible. Now, I found that these cues are a bit sensitive, so you might feel yourself getting a little wobbly coming off the target in the roll. So let's go ahead and demonstrate our first roll-in, and we'll try and do a couple of different profiles heading into our target here to show you guys that it really doesn't matter what dive angle to use to actually hit your target at. Go ahead and roll in. Try to get as wings level as possible. And we'll go ahead and lock our radar onto the ship down there. We've got our weapon release cue crawling up towards the diamond. And we'll start pulling out of the dive. Try to keep as wings level as possible. pressing and holding the pickle button, and the weapons are away, and we'll see how accurate our delivery was. The jet was telling us to roll a bit to the right-hand side, but it felt like I was pretty wings level coming off the dive from that target. And impact. Nice shot. Right into the side of that ship. Perfect. So I don't always follow the roll cues absolutely precisely, and if you do, it's going to be extremely sensitive. You're going to feel yourself kind of wobbling coming off the target area there. So we'll set our command switch back to air-to-air navigation mode to reset everything, and we'll practice some good air-to-ground fundamentals and not re-attack our target from a reciprocal or the same heading. And we'll go for a bit of a shallower dive here. So in the F4, of course, you're going to be doing a lot of coordination between the front seat, the back seat here, getting everything set up again for a new lock on the ground in order to re-attack the target. But as you can see from reading through Palace Cobra and Ed Rasmus's fantastic book about the F-4E, that it can be extremely accurate with a good crew that knows what they're doing and has good communication between the front seat and the back seat, and you can be just as accurate in the F4 as you can see me being here in the Mirage 2000. So we got a bit of a shallower dive. We're going to set it up to start off nice and wings level. We're going to lock the target, and we're going to start the pull out. So as you guys can see there, it really doesn't matter when you start to pull off the target, or if you want to keep the dive all the way down to the target, as if you were doing a CCIP delivery. All the jet cares about is just calculating that point in space and time when it wants to release the bombs off the aircraft to impact the point you have the radar locked onto. It's another perfect hit right there. And command switch aft again, back to air-to-air navigation mode, and back to air-to-ground mode to reset everything. Always good to pop into a cloud to get rid of any optically guided AAA. Of course, the bigger stuff that's usually radar guided is not going to care about clouds. Alright, we're coming back around. We'll try and get a really shallow dive angle in on the target here, almost more like a lay-down type delivery than an actual dive toss type delivery. So now we're coming in quite shallow, try to get our wings as level as possible. And in the Mirage, just like the F4, the faster you are when you deliver bombs and dive toss, the more accurate the delivery is going to be. So as you can see there, we're almost back all the way to wings level, almost in a lay-down-like maneuver, and the weapon just released right at the correct time to hopefully get another good impact on our target. And oh, just a little bit long. If you do have a steeper dive onto your target, you can be a little bit more accurate in terms of what point on the ground your radar is actually going to be locking onto. But if you are forced to have a shallower angle onto your target, such as you're avoiding low-lying clouds, such as in the monsoon season in South or North Vietnam, it doesn't really matter. As long as you're going to get somewhere in the vicinity or the same grid square of that suspected truck park, then mission accomplished. So I hope this video was illuminating for you guys, and I hope that hopping into the Mirage 2000C to do a bit of dive toss bombing practice is going to satiate some of that hype train that is going strong for a lot of you guys when it comes to the F-4E Phantom II. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a subscribe, and it's always appreciated. And as always, fly safe out there, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.